Well, good morning, everyone. How are we? Once the meeting gets underway,
Morning.
I'll ask everybody to go ahead and mute so that we can just get through the webinar this morning. And then toward the end of the session, around 40 minutes somewhere, give or take, flexible, we'll open the mics up for some Q&A and see what all you guys need answered. It's the Professional Development Series with the Greater Beaumont Chamber of Commerce. I'm Joey Armstrong. I'm the new Member Development Director here at the Beaumont Chamber. And we've been surveying our members over the past months, several months ago, actually, toward the beginning of the year. We had a questionnaire that went out on a lot of different professional development subjects, and we asked some of the things that you'd be interested in us helping a little bit more with as far as events and stuff is concerned. So this was a great time to be able to get some of those knocked out with these webinars. So far, we've talked about social media, had a couple of branding seminars. We still have strategic planning and leadership development coming up next Thursday and the last Thursday of the month. But today, the focus is on one of the most important subjects, not that any of them aren't less important, but especially now it's appropriate, change management. And the title of this webinar is Change Mindset. I think we've all had to make a lot of adjustments, some of them a little bit easier to get through than others. But I reached out and I found Ellen Zimmerman with Ellen Zimmerman Consulting, and she agreed to do a change management webinar for us. And I thought it was really important. You should have a handout that we had emailed out yesterday with the instructions on how to log into this meeting. So I hope you have that nearby, and we're going to go through all of it. I'm really excited. When I spoke with Ellen, I could tell immediately that she really has a good bead on I think what everybody's going through in business and personally. And I think that she's going to have a lot to offer you this morning. So I'd like to go ahead and turn everything over to Ellen Zimmerman and introduce her. Ellen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ellen.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
It's wonderful to have you here, and we're glad that you agreed to conduct this webinar. We're looking forward to it. It'll last about an hour. So let's go ahead and mute up. And if you're ready, Ellen, you good to go?
Yes, yes.
All right.
How do you want me to do the slides? Are you giving me control, or?
You should have it already. I believe you do. And if you don't, then we'll make sure that you do.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, getting used to
nice.
to using Zoom.
Yes.
Let's see. Did it go? Now, do you guys see it?
Yep, see it.
Okay, good deal.
You look good.
If you've learned Zoom, then that's like task 101 for this change management. Everyone had to dive into Zoom quickly with very little time to prepare for that. So, and I never know how it's going to look. Every time I've done one of these, the both screens take over, or one screen shows it, the other one doesn't. But I'm very glad to be here. We will get through one way or the other. I've always said that in my training. It doesn't matter if I walk around with a piece of paper, always ready for something to fail or a challenge to come about. But we're going to go through the slides. I can see most of you guys, it looks like, in the gallery view. So that's good. I can kind of get a read. If you have a question and need to stop me, just let me know. But here's a little bit of information about me. And let me move you guys over some. I work with teams for tools to collaborate and innovate. I support leaders and individuals through assessments and coaching. I love to create engaging and motivating training. And I've been doing that online and face-to-face for a number of years now. So when Joy reached out, said, hey, we need change management, I said, love that topic. It's a great one, especially right now. And you'll probably realize in a minute I have a soapbox moment on that too. So find your chat box. And what I want you to do is type in one thing that if you could learn about it today that would help you, one thing that would help you, what would it be? Joey, I don't know if I can see the chat box. You may have to kind of tell me what it says.
I can certainly do that if they start coming in.
Okay. And sometimes you'll notice that the chat box disappears. So I don't know how much you've been on Zoom. You sometimes have to slide the cursor down or up. and it will pop up for you if you have any trouble finding it. You seeing some things?
Mm-hmm.
I popped it open for a minute. It covers my screen. I have to move it, but I see Sharita. Hello, Sharita. So if there was one thing you could learn about today that would help you, what would it be?
Can you see the chat box, Ellen?
I popped it open for a minute, but I only saw like 1 or 2 comments. I can't see all of the comments evidently.
Okay, I've got one in. It says learning to better lead staff while working remotely.
Okay, that's a good one.
I also have another one, how to boost group morale remotely.
Okay.
And then help me think in larger pictures.
Okay. We're actually going to think big today, or dream big, I should say.
And then of course we have a joker, the next great stock to buy.
Oh, wouldn't that be good for all of us? Probably toilet paper was a good one, if we'd known that was coming. Anything else on that?
Nope, those are the ones we've got so far.
Okay.
So again,
That's fine. Those are all
got
good.
a few more coming in.
Those are all
Okay,
good.
so learning to better lead staff while working remotely, how to boost
Mhm.
group morale remotely, help me think in larger pictures,
Right.
effectively keeping communication clear with all staff.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep moving. So unknowns happen clearly, and if you can see the headline on this newspaper, you know it says changes coming in 2020. News: coronavirus shuts down world. Toilet paper shortage expected. Wouldn't you have thought that was just the biggest joke ever if you had seen this? In no time, here we are. We were put into a forced lockdown, so we didn't have any option on this. So when you talk about change management, and it's a lot about mindset, it's how you think about it. So as we were forced into this, it's made us adapt whether we were ready to or not. And it's obviously not been comfortable for a lot of people. So why do we resist change so much? Can you type in a few answers around that? Why do you think we push back on change so much? I wish I could see that chat box so I didn't have to make you read them, Joey.
There's fear of unknown. There's another fear of unknown,
Okay.
creature of habit, scared of the unknown. We're set in our ways,
Right.
being comfortable in our own routines. Routine is normal.
Those are all good answers, very good answers. And what's interesting is we know what these answers are. We know pretty much what stops us. And I use Brene Brown's work a lot because I'm a facilitator for that. And basically, it's not so much that we don't want to do it. You know, we put on armor and we protect ourselves. So sometimes the fear of the unknown, we don't know what we don't know. And we don't feel comfortable going there because it makes us vulnerable. New things that we're not exposed to, we don't understand. Sometimes it's the one person show who thinks if I'm the only one that has the information, then I'll be the most important person in the room. Perfectionism, which a lot of times we think of perfectionism, you know, that's a positive. It can be, unless you're so picky about things that you can't delegate and allow someone else an opportunity to grow. Impatience, I think we probably all at one point or another said, you know, it's easier for me to just do it than to show somebody else how. So we're trying to get things done rapidly. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great quality. The way it's always been, I think someone mentioned that one a minute ago. And then maybe we feel like we can't learn it. So different people have different mindsets around learning and what they're capable of. And if we look at a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, and this is in the handout too. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. And a couple of these things, it looks like maybe out of order, but it's all on the handout when we get to it. But a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is basically if you feel that you can learn new things or not. So a growth mindset creates a passion for learning rather than a hunger for approval, like the fixed mindset. And if you want to fill that in on your worksheet. And then a growth mindset can be cultivated through deliberate practice too. You can change the way you feel. So a lot of times a fixed or growth mindset is something that you probably had instilled in you when you were much younger. It had to do with how you were raised and the way you were exposed to learning or the way even people talk to you about things. If you look at this graph, which I think is a very good description, I found this online, it's around whether you want to have a desire to look good or you have a desire to learn. And a fixed mindset, you think that typically that person would think that their ability is inherent. They were born with it, they either have it or they don't. So they don't put as much effort into trying new things and it scares them. They feel vulnerable. And if you have a growth mindset, then you're thinking that you can learn things. You probably read books a lot. You like to try new things. A person in a growth mindset is much more comfortable right now with what's going on. A person in a fixed mindset is very threatened by it because it's going to change everything that they already know and they're comfortable with. So another Brene Brown quote, and this is all research-based, and that's one reason I like her work so much. It's research-based and it's very easy for people to resonate with. And this is based on her research, and it says vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. So, I mean, it is. If you think about where we are right now, think about how they took that test for COVID, and now all of a sudden they can do it in, I think, 15 minutes, maybe. That was a very short amount of time that they were able to innovate and come up with a new way to do that when the focus was put on it. So these are 3 different things that required people to be vulnerable, to have new ideas and share those ideas. I don't know if I would have wanted been in the room the first person that said, hey, let's create a car that drives itself. Everybody probably looked at them funny, and still some people are a little intimidated by that thought. But the top left is a heart that's been created with a 3D fabricator, which you're probably hearing more and more about that now. I did research on that when I got my PhD, actually, on fabricators, and it's very fascinating. And now they're using it for more and more medical use too. You can take a hip joint and you can do an MRI and you can actually create that exact hip joint. When in the past there were really, I think it was only 3 different sizes you had to pick from. So it wasn't a very appropriate fit for some people. And then on the right, of course, you have the blades that originated with a person who had lost a limb, and they were determined they were going to find something better than that stiff device that attached and didn't allow them to have any movement. And through a discussion they had about, someone said about a blade, who would have thought about a blade on your foot? It just doesn't sound right. But it has become a very natural feeling device for people who have lost a limb, a leg. So innovation is at its best during a challenge. I want you to think about that for a minute, because this is where we are. I mean, the pandemic has given us all the chance to wipe our slates clean and start fresh. So I think this, throwing us into the middle of this change management and change mindset, we're in it. We can't get any closer right now. Yeah, in the past, businesses talk about it all the time when you have changes, and even when you know it's coming up, people still have a hard time making those transitions. But we have a chance to wipe our slates clean and start fresh. the state of nothing being normal means you can decide what you want to keep and what you want to change. So if there's ever been a really good change or a time to make changes, it's now. You can change your career, the habits, your goals. It's all yours to start fresh with. Because when everything's like this anyway, there's no right or wrong, or we feel more open to that fact because we're all vulnerable right now. It's not just one aspect of your life or one person who's in this situation. So on the worksheet, I want you to look at that for a minute. And I want you to think about your top 2 to 3 challenges. This is actually the first thing on the worksheet. Think about November last year. In your work, what was your top challenge or your top 1 or 2 challenges that you feel you faced? And write those down. Okay, and as you think about those and write those down, think about present day, which this is what it looks like to us now. It's even worse. You know, we thought it was bad in November. We're on a tight wire now. But think about today's challenges. Are they different? So there again, write down 1 or 2 today's challenges that you see. So then a few people volunteer in there. Are they the same challenges? Are they different? They're not the same. I see Dee shaking her head no. What's consensus here?
Unmute yourself and answer. More than welcome to.
Mine are the same.
They are the same? Okay. Another same? I'm also curious about this. So, you know, are they the same or are they different?
Mine are the same.
Okay.
Mine are different.
Mine are totally different.
Okay. Wide variety.
I'd say
there.
some are the same, but they're magnified.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Mine are
exactly.
different, but I'm at a different organization than where I was in November.
Oh, okay. And that's probably, I expect that's going to happen quite a bit right now, actually. I mean, if people wanted to change career, now's a great time because there's total explanation for why you are. I mean, anybody and everybody could be because of the situation we've been in. I'm not saying you have to change careers. A lot of people are very willing and expecting that they will go back to the same role. Needless to say, they'll probably all be a little bit different no matter what your role is. There's not very many that'll still be the same. So as you think about those challenges that you're facing, whether they're the same or not, and it's interesting to find out that there's so much variance that some are the same and some aren't. And I'd love to go into that discussion deeper, but we don't have time for that. So what I want you to do on the worksheet, watch how I say that, live and in person. So on the handout, there is a grid on there, and it's what I use with training a lot of times. It's kind of a modified SWOT analysis, and I just call it MLAP. And we're basically going to start with the end because we've just identified what the pitfalls are pretty much. Your challenges that you selected pretty much identify what your immediate needs are to either resolve or improve on, to take action on. So once we identify our pitfalls, we would usually kind of go to the end and say that's our challenges and weaknesses that we need to watch for. But let's go to the top now and say more of. What do we want more of? What's working well for you right now? Make a few notes in there about what is working well that you see that you really want to be sure to keep, that you need. All right, and so I don't run out of time. I'm going to keep going, but you guys can all go back to this for more detail after the meeting. So let's look at what you want less of. Less stress, obviously, but what has got to stop? You know, what's a detriment to your work right now? And it could be, and I kind of expect you are either seeing a lot more collaborating and helping each other now than you have been, or you're seeing a lot less of, and you're seeing people that are withdrawn and not communicating and collaborating. I would tend to think you have one or the other because we're under stress and everything tends to be exaggerated in that situation. So you don't see as much happy middle. And then write down a few action items of how you can get started making the changes needed, how you can start getting rid of the things that are not working and doing more of the things that are working. And keep in mind that communication came up a lot, and always, even without a pandemic, communication or lack of is always one of the big issues that businesses have. And organizations, generally, that's the first thing they tell me they need help with. It's always communication. But keep in mind right now, a lot of people are having challenges around focus. And that in itself is a whole nother session too, because we're so distracted by things that are going around with the pandemic and every day, and will I have a job? Do I have the money? Will I have toilet paper? I mean, we're all over the place. You know, are the kids there? And in video training like this, for example, it's just, and I love Joey started off, I mean, it's just comfortable. You just can't help but be comfortable when you're having these meetings. It's not like when you were at work and you had the video conference and everybody was pristine. You know, I laughed earlier. I said I put a dress on for this. First one I've worn in at least 2 months, but that's not the norm now. But so people are being distracted by things. And when you say about communication, you really have to over communicate. And if people get it, they'll either tell you, okay, I got it. Or you can use a few tips and just ask them, okay, share it back to me. And you can blame it on yourself. Say, share it back to me because I'm trying to keep things organized. Tell me what I said so I can be sure we've got that. So use a few things like that. But to move ahead so I don't get distracted, focus again. So make a plan on what action items you can take around this. And I love this cartoon. It says, what if we don't change it all and something magical just happens? Does it ever do that? I mean, it's not going to happen, right? So the next thing I want to take you through is a process of dreaming big. So when we dream big, and there's a place on the worksheet for that too, I want you to think about something that you feel needs to change. With the exercise we just went through, you probably have a pretty good idea. It might be that it's someone's behavior. It might be something about collaboration. Any number of things that you feel need to change. Okay, now I want you to go really dark on that. I want you to think about it staying the same as it is now forever, okay? I want you to think about the worst case scenario. And I actually want you to take some notes on this because there's a lot of value in writing, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But if everything stays like it is now, what does it look like in the future? For you, for your team, for your organization? What do you see? Okay, and I won't leave you there too long. Like a positive, not negative. Now, I want you to think about that same issue or situation. And I want you to think about what could it look like if I take action? What can it be? Throw in the unicorns and rainbows, and make it the best possible picture you could get. So take a few minutes and make a few notes about that. What can it look like if you resolve this issue or whatever it is that you're using for your example? And this is the one you really need to spend more time with. And I'll explain why in just a minute. So if you pause after this step and you think about the icky, terrible yuck you've got right now, and ew, it could stay that way for months and months and years if you just don't do anything about it. And then you think about, oh, but what if I did? And what if it looked like this? And it was wonderful to go to work and everyone was happy. You can create this incentive for yourself to take action, because all that's missing is the action in between to address the issue. And because of the HR aspect background I have, I always feel like I need to share. I mean, we hired employees. So if it's an associate or an employee concern or issue, we hired them. And as HR people and leaders, I think we always should be arm in arm. We hired them, we need to help them, we need to work with them. If we don't tell them there's a problem, we're not helping them. So issues should be discussed and brought up with people. And who knows, they may turn around and have no clue that that was an issue. So because that typically is a topic that comes up with communication training, I just feel like I needed to say that. We don't do any favors if we don't tell people where we see issues. So we've just painted a much prettier picture for what things could be. And after that, you need to write all of this down, and we're going to talk about adding the steps you need to take, who else might need to be included in this discussion or action, and putting dates to make sure you have a goal to reach for. But you are 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. This is based on research. I mean, it's like 42% more likely. That's almost half as much likely. When you write things down, you activate both parts of your brain. And then the imaginative part of your brain and the logic-based hemisphere work together. So in your head, they're processing and making connections, and all you're doing is writing it. Now, it could be digital. You know, it could have a digital device that you write on now. It's actually that motion of your hand that makes the difference. So when you dream big, you start with the really icky, yucky, okay, if I do nothing. And you're helping to identify, can I live with that? If I leave it like this and I keep justifying, but they do a really good job and they're always on time, but the company is still making money, so really don't need to change that process. If you leave things like they are, is it really in your best interest? If you change it, what could it look like? Great opportunities there. And that's really, like I said, where we are right now with this pandemic situation. Opportunities to do business differently. People are doing businesses online now. The video conferencing, a lot of people never thought they'd learn how to use Zoom or any other tool. But if you think about it, we're all being vulnerable when we do this. You know, we're being vulnerable and we're stepping in there and we're getting comfortable with that, which I think will help us in so many more ways. Just from this one tool using Zoom, where we know we might accidentally jump out, we might accidentally almost say the wrong word. You know, so many things can happen, and we just have to jump in and go with it. So another quote from the work I do with Brene Brown's content, and this came from the research where she spoke with over 150 executives and leaders. And these were people from all different organizations, military, large businesses, all over the place. And the consensus was that we need more leaders who are committed to courageous, wholehearted leadership and who are self-aware enough to lead from their hearts rather than unevolved leaders who lead from hurt and fear. Because when we lead from hurt and fear and we do things that intimidate people, they can't be vulnerable. They won't share new ideas. They're less likely to be the ones that step up and say, oh, I'll help with that, or I'll lead that project, or, you know, I messed up, but I'm ready to make it right. So we really have to lead from a place where people can have connection with us. So what do you think stops us from being courageous? And this is another chat box moment. What do you think stops us from being courageous and having conversations and addressing things? So not personal, but leaders in general. What do you think stops people? You can unmute or you can type some things in the chat.
I say they get comfortable in where they're at.
Mhm.
Got fear of being told no, fear of not being accepted as far as ideas are concerned, fear of failure.
Right.
One agrees, yes, fear of failure.
Right.
I would say also being looked at as an oddity.
Okay.
Homeless.
I hope not.
Me too.
We've got a lot of fear of failure.
Okay. Yeah, and that's very true. I mean, if we look at some more of the information from Brene Brown's work, she says you can't get to courage without rumbling with vulnerability. And she says embrace the suck. In other words, it's not comfortable, but we have to do it. And it takes us being vulnerable to step out and be courageous. I mean, everybody wants to be courageous, right? Nobody wants to be vulnerable. But in reality, you cannot have one without the other. She shares a story where she was at a military base and she just asked everyone, who can tell me of one case where you have been brave that you were not vulnerable? It was quiet. One man finally piped up and said, there's not any, ma'am. He 2 or 3 tours, whatever he'd had, he said, you cannot be courageous without being vulnerable. And when you really break that down and think about it in your own world, it's true. The new idea you said, being thought of, you know, it's something silly or not wanting to share because somebody might not like the idea. I mean, you're being vulnerable when you share your ideas. And sometimes people shut people down where they're not comfortable with that. These are some paradoxes of vulnerability that I also find very impactful for people. And there's a place on your handout for this. Vulnerability looks like courage in you. When I see you being vulnerable, it looks like you're courageous to me. But it feels like weakness when I do it. Now, how can that be? You know, it can't work opposite for people like that. And then vulnerability is the first thing I look for when I meet you. Are you authentic? Are you comfortable person for me to talk to? But it's the last thing that I want to show you. So I think these are just aspects that kind of help a person put things into perspective, that we're all vulnerable. It's just more around what do we do to protect ourselves? We put up armor. Also, many of us are the first to offer to help people, but we're the last to ask for it. And right now, we need these connections. And we need to make sure that we reach out to people and offer to help. And don't be afraid to ask to help. And I don't know who all does marketing on here. I mean, you mentioned some seminars or webinars on that. I mean, to me, I relate that to marketing because I will help people find connections all the time, but I really hate to ask people, hey, do you need me to do this? Or can I do this for you? I offer it a lot of times more like complimentary, but I don't want to ask people for money. And I work with a lot of nonprofits too. And there's I mean, people want to help. People want quality products. They want to have connections with people who they can work with and collaborate with. But we always feel afraid to ask for that when we shouldn't. I mean, we're wired for connections. And then this quote, ultimately, leadership is the ability to thrive in the ambiguity of paradoxes and opposites. And this man is got a cloud platform and just really large operation, a lot of great information on how he started off and made a large company. And it's really about this ambiguity that we play sometimes, and that people are opposites. And when you're looking at your, let's see, opportunities for your mindset, you've got to think larger. You're capable of most anything you put your mind to, if you're willing to learn it and stretch a little. So as we go through all of this change, it's going to be more about a mindset change than it is the actual operation, because we can all get through this. And I like this little commitment. I added this. It said, you can need to commit to learn new things without kicking and screaming. Sometimes people just don't want to learn new things. And you need to help others to do the same, especially if you're one of the people who are comfortable with learning new things. But reach out to people and get connections and see who you can collaborate with. I actually have a group, and I did this when I decided to go into consulting again, and I knew I'd be working remote, and I know the remote teams came up. I've worked remote for years, and there's a lot of things to be done about that too that helps teams work together better. But when I knew I was going to do that again, I knew that I needed connections. So I joined some groups and organizations. I have 2 other coaches that we went through our training together, and we talk weekly about what's going on and what are you working on, and is there something I can help you with. And connections don't just happen. You have to work at them. I used to always, that's one of those things where I felt weird. I would be the first to help people, but I didn't want to have to ask people, hey, do you want to collaborate or talk about this or share ideas? But everyone has been so receptive to work together and help. So find your connection of people in your group. And I think, the chamber is a great example of that. Having this connection to carry people through these challenging times is very important. So I really appreciate organizations like this. So be sure to sign your commitment. And we can all get through this if we support each other.
I think it's a fantastic presentation. I think everybody would completely agree. Being able to come together in these Zoom meetings or whatever, it's some of the only connection that a lot of people have, whether they're afraid or their organization is telling them hunker down, or we've got to just, not connect right now.
Right.
Personally, it's really good that we have this kind of a platform to be able to get together and see each other and listen to, things like this is really, really important. I really do think that, like we talked about on the phone, Ellen, earlier, that this is a great opportunity to adjust your personal and professional situation and grab that dream,
Right.
that you have been thinking about or wanting to accomplish, because you have just a little more time now than you did before.
Right.
I think everybody would agree that there is a little more freed up time to focus in on that. And this kind of subject matter really causes people to think and get excited about, what those rainbows and unicorns down the road look
Right.
like for them. Ellen, that was a fantastic presentation. I think everybody will agree. Does anybody have any questions? Like, open your mic up. You can raise your hand, however you prefer. We're more than welcome to take any questions if you have them. I think everybody's in the middle of still thinking about what just happened to them. If you do, you can put it in the chat box. You can unmute yourself. Everybody is in the chat box saying, thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen. Great job, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen. I agree.
Welcome.
Yeah. Amy, is that you?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think the hard part is just adjusting to everything is so different now. And that's the hard part, is adjusting to everything. Businesses closed. I'm making, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 calls a day, and just hearing the sadness.
Yeah.
That's the hard part too.
Yeah, I mean, we've been forced into so many things at once, along with, compassion fatigue, where you may be caring for other people and the parents that have children at home and stress going on with that. And the, I'll say, survivor guilt about if you do still have a job and you have a nice place to live and you're not being challenged by the monetary issues, that you have some guilt around that. We've been bombarded with so much all at once. It's just, I never could have imagined this in our lifetime. So it's really a lot is focus and taking hold of things, so you don't look at where you are and feel helpless. You look at where you are and you're mindful about it and you acknowledge it, and then you drive the car and decide where you're headed with it. Sometimes we just let loose and we get in the wind. Well, anybody that learn anything about child psychology, I mean, people want routine, they want structure and habit. And it's been very challenging because if you're working remote, you're at home and you're at work and you're at home, all in the same place. Usually when you have a change in your scenery, it kind of helps you reset who you are. And I can tell you from working remote years ago, my husband would come to the door, "Are you going to quit working today?" Because, "Oh, it's 5. Especially if you like what you do, you just keep doing it. So you really do have to be more structured around forcing yourself into a daily routine.
I found something. So I've been lucky. I've been fortunate. I've been working. I'm monetarily successful. Everything's okay. Problem with that is the fear of unknown. What's the future hold because of this situation?
Yeah.
Anytime anything can fold, and then where would I be at? So that's my anxiety. Is all of a sudden I'm going, well, any day now the rug can drop underneath me, and I'll be, where am I going to be at? That's what's really concerning for me. Not just for me, but then all those people that are dependent upon me. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about. So again, when you talk about change and what can I do, and Amy knows and Joey knows, I've been talking about some things that I've been thinking about, because I don't want that unknown factor in my future.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to take charge of that.
There you go.
Right. And there's a lot of things you can take charge of. And then there are some things where you have to realize that you might be worried about things that will never happen too. The example a story I like to use with that, for people to balance that out, being prepared versus spending too much time on it. The family that saves money to go to Disney, they're all excited. We've got the money. We're taking the kids to Disney World. And women in particular will do this. What's the first thing, and you guys, if you want to pipe in, what's the first thing a female will usually do when you're going on a big trip like that?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So what's the first thing a mom or the woman will usually do? You're going to take the family and go on a vacation. What's the first thing the mom does or thinks? It's like, what if somebody gets sick? What if the plane
Well,
crashes?
you booked it.
Oh, I was thinking all the women that I've ever been with that took to Disney, they got drunk before. So I don't know.
And I would never, ever attempt to say what a woman would think. I just don't do it as a general rule.
Okay, well, let's say, that generally a lot of women will go dark and they'll think about the negative things that could happen. So we have to be careful we don't squander our joy and our time with happiness, that, we've done it, with too much on the negative and what could happen. But in this time, Dustin, I definitely agree. I mean, having a plan and having some ideas is good, as long as you don't let that stress you out too much. Then, so
Yeah.
Quote. I don't know if I've got it right, with something to the effect of, worry is interest paid on fear before it's due, or.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if that's the exact quote.
Yeah.
My wife talks about that all the time. You're worrying about things that you don't have control over. Take control over the things that you do and move those balls forward, because that's completely in your wheelhouse. And I mean, you can. There are going to be certain things that you're not able to do, not necessarily because it's outside of your it's outside of the power, but
Right.
you have a lot of power to accomplish a lot of things. And in the conversation, because it made me feel really good going through this worksheet, at least I'm not completely crazy, because as I'm going through these worksheets and I'm listening to Ellen, these little light bulbs are going off, and I'm like, I've done that, and I've thought about that, and so it makes me at least think that my head's in the right place. Hopefully, it's in the right place. Some of the time, maybe a couple of days a week. But it does give you a lot of motivation. It gives you a lot of, okay, you know what? This is where I am. This is what I want to accomplish. This is what I want to do. How am I going to do it? And especially, who do I need to get involved? Who do I need to get involved? That was the big one for me.
And it's the mindset of thinking about where you are. It's more around strategy and understanding where you are. It's not about the over worrying and stressing out about things. It's that proactive is what I hear you guys saying. I mean, it's that being prepared is proactive. That's taking control and moving with it, and not spending time too much with the worry.
That's awesome.
We talk about that too. There's a lot of thinking in our head that we do. Yeah. And a lot of times if you collaborate or talk with someone else, you'll realize everyone's doing it. But until we see that or get comfort in that, it makes us feel much more vulnerable to talk to other people. And that's one of the reasons we don't always collaborate. We're afraid to tell somebody else what we're thinking when they're probably the same way.
So that leads me to my next question. Where's lunch?
I thought we already covered that, Dustin. I was going to share a big image of a burger on the screen, but I couldn't download it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know if you can get burgers. That's another one of our challenges, right?
I know. Well, go ahead. Somebody else wanted to say something? All right. Well, Ellen, very, very, very good stuff. I'm so glad that we were connected. I never met Ellen before a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and this is the first time I've seen her face on this call, like a lot of you. But really useful and needed information. I really appreciate you taking the time and volunteering your time to come and talk to the group. And we wish you all the best and stay safe. And if there's anything that you need and you're thinking about these things as you move forward, I know Ellen would be happy to talk with you further. You can message her, you can talk to her. If you need contact information, I can put you in touch. She'd be happy to consult you in any way that she can help you with. Or we've got a couple of webinars that are still going to be on the way. Next Thursday, we're going to be talking about strategic planning. And that's going to be Craig Escamilla, who's going to be presenting that a lot like Ellen did today. And then our final one is going to be coming up on the 28th. That's on the final Thursday of the month. And we'll be talking about strategic planning and getting all that stuff moved forward as well. So leadership development, strategic planning next week, leadership development the following week. Wanted to let you know real quick, we do have the session recorded. We'll be posting that to the website. All of the webinars are available now under media in the right-hand corner at bmtcoc.org. You can click on that and you can view the stream. We'll have that up a little bit later on today, possibly as late as tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning, if you're able to join us for the Friday Morning Business Connection, we'll be kicking off at 8:30. And we are planning on getting back together live very, very soon, probably sooner than you expected. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Again, Ellen, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Joey, do you want to do a screenshot of everybody? Does anybody want to come off?
Yeah,
like
I
a
do
screenshot
want to do
picture?
a screenshot. Hold on. How does this work?
Anybody else?
Oh, see, if I hold it that way, it doesn't even look like I'm holding a camera.
I'll snap one too from my computer. So everybody smile. I'm going to snap one. I'll send it to you. Oh, there's some more people. Okay, here we go.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me do a selfie.
Oh, wait. Okay. Oh,
all right, cool. Wow.
I'll send it to you.
That's my first Zoom selfie. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Ellen,
Ellen.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for logging on. Hey,
Thank
Tim,
you.
didn't know that was you. Everybody, thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you soon. You guys be safe. Have a good Thursday, a great weekend if we don't see you on Friday morning. And until then, hopefully next Thursday we'll join you again.